Hi guys, welcome to my channel Lush Foliage. I hope you guys are fine and are safe at home. So guys, today we're going to be talking about a very interesting and easy to go plant which is called as Coleus. Now if you're a beginner and if you're just starting with gardening, this is one of the plant you must include in your collection. Now guys, talking about the varieties, there are over 300 plus varieties of Coleus plants. Recently they have been adding a lot of new cultivars. Now the care requirement for all the Coleus varieties remains the same. The only difference is light requirement. So basically if you have a Coleus plant that has really bright colored leaves, then you'll have to expose it to direct morning sunlight. But otherwise all the varieties have the same care requirements. Now talking about the temperature, Coleus plants like warm temperature, usually between 21 degrees Celsius to 30 degrees Celsius, but they can also survive if they are acclimated well. They can also survive temperatures up to 12 degrees Celsius. So regarding the pot size, you can always start with a smaller pot size, but Coleus plants are very fast growing plants, so be sure to check the roots every few months to see if the plant has outgrown its container. Always move the plant to the next big size of pot and nothing larger that can prevent the soil from staying wet for too long and causing root rot. Now talking about the soil requirement, Coleus plants love soil that is quick, well draining, and it has to be aerated. Now Coleus plants also likes their soil to be slightly moist but not soggy. So a mix of coco peat, perlite, regular garden soil and sand should do the trick. Coco peat will retain slight moisture in the soil, perlite will help aerate the soil, regular gardening soil will provide the nutrients, and sand will help the soil become well draining. Now talking about watering, a Coleus is a fast growing plant and dries out more quickly than many other plants. Now here is another example. As you can see that the leaves are drooping downwards. This is an indication that the plant is thirsty. Or whenever you happen to see that the upper layer of soil, at least 1 to 2 inches layer of the soil is dry, you can go ahead and water your plant. Also this plant tends to like slight moisture in their soil but not soggy soil. Talking about the light conditions, Coleus plants love bright light, a lot of bright light. They will do well indoor as well as long as you provide them with indirect bright light. Now there are a lot of new varieties as we spoke about that are coming up in the market which have really colorful foliage. These kind of Coleus plants will appreciate morning direct sunlight, but ensure that you acclimate them before putting them out in morning direct sunlight. But guys, do not expose your Coleus plants to afternoon direct sunlight, especially if the sun is too strong. Otherwise it will bleach the color on the leaves. Also there is a high chance that your leaves will also get burnt, so ensure that you place them in indirect bright light. Now talking about fertilizers, Coleus plants, as you know, that tend to grow really fast, so they will appreciate a balanced plant food. You can use any kind of fertilizers. You can use compost, you can use compost tea, or you can even use liquid based fertilizers. Now if you're using a liquid based fertilizer, seaweed will be really great, but always ensure that you dilute it and use a very small amount of dosage. Now the best part about liquid fertilizers is that it evenly spreads into the soil and it's much easier for the plant to absorb. So it's up to you. You can use any fertilizers that you're comfortable with. Now talking about pruning, because Coleus plants tends to grow so fast, and in case if you want to maintain a small size or if you want to maintain a shape, you can always go ahead and prune the leaves. Now pruning will help the plant become bushy and it will prevent the plant from looking leggy. Now apart from this, whenever you do the cuttings, you can either share it with your friends or you can pot them again, because Coleus plants tends to grow from stem cutting as well. Now talking about pests and diseases, yes, this plant does get affected with mealybugs, aphids and white flies. Now what happens is a lot of time the white flies tend to lay their eggs underneath the leaves. So always when you're doing a thorough check, turn the leaves around and check if you're finding any kind of white eggs. If you happen to find that, you can always use any kind of DIY organic spray or you can use any insecticides. That's up to you. But whenever you're doing any kind of application or any kind of spray, ensure that your Coleus plant is away from direct sunlight sunlight and keep them in shade until everything dries off. Apart from that, a Coleus plant can also get root rot if you're overwatering this plant. Now, talking about propagation, it's very easy to propagate a Coleus plant, and that can be done by stem cutting. Ensure that the stem that you're about to cut is healthy and well hydrated and does not have any pests. Now guys, another advice would be whenever you're doing a stem cutting, ensure that the stem does not have a flower or is not in the stage of blooming, because whenever you're doing a cutting, whether it be for a Coleus plant or for any plant, you want to ensure that it's not in its stage of blooming, because at this point of time, whenever you're doing a cutting, you want the plant to root, and if the plant is blooming, then it will be difficult for the plant to send out roots, because majority of the energy would be getting into blooming the flower. So ensure that you have a cutting that does not have a bloom. In case if you have used a cutting that already has a bloom, then you'll have to cut off the bloom so that the plant can conserve that energy in producing new roots. Now, once you have done the stem cutting, you have got the desired cutting that you wanted. All you have to do is just take the cutting and put it into the soil. Now, always ensure that whenever you are placing your cutting in the pot, ensure that for a couple of days, the plant is not exposed to direct sunlight. Ensure that you keep your cutting potted in a pot away from direct sunlight. Ensure that you place it in a cool, humid environment so that the roots can develop faster. Now, talking about humidity, Coleus plants do like high humidity, but they can do well in average humidity that is found indoors. But if the air is too dry or if the soil is too dry, then the leaves of the Coleus plants will start drooping downwards like this. So always ensure that you maintain a slight moisture in the soil so that the leaves can perk up. Now, the most important question, is this plant toxic? Yes, Coleus plants are toxic to animals and humans as well. If the plant leaves are ingested, it can be toxic. So ensure that you keep this plant away from the reach of small children and pets. So guys, I hope that this video on Coleus plants was helpful to you. If it was, please consider subscribing to my channel. Until then, take care, stay safe and keep planting.